All right, welcome back, everybody. Entrepreneurial Empire. Here we go. We have a guest speaker today. Okay, this guest speaker is just a phenomenal individual, entrepreneur to every length, to every extent. I mean, this gentleman has literally created so much wealth, but not only wealth in a finance way, but also wealth in an abundant family way, and every type of wealth that you can possibly think about. And we're going to hear about his journey and how he created this success going from, point A to point B. And this gentleman, he's going to even tell us where he's going right now. So even things are constantly in the works for him. He never stops. So exciting with his great energy. And we're going to hear from him today. Guest speaker today, we got Miguel Gamillo. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jacqueline, for that introduction. That's amazing. And I'm glad to be on this podcast. And what you're doing is powerful. And so anything that I could do to help, push the needle forward and work together, I think is special. So thank you for having me on this podcast.
Awesome. So, Miguel, how long have we known each other for now?
Oh, my goodness. That's going to age the both of us, even though you look young still. I would say, wow, probably around 15 years?
Yes, 15 years. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
We both look the same though.
I
Not
hope so. I
much.
hope everybody could attest to that. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been amazing too, the way we met and staying in communication. I think that's also powerful in itself.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to talk about you. We're going to just dive right in. I want to hear about your journey. I mean, I've been watching your success along the years. 15 years is a long time to see someone's journey and just how it all evolved, and just the things that you're doing are just so powerful, not just in your own life and your family's life, but just to everybody around you, your friends, your family, everybody is just a part of your success. And I personally love that when you are winning, not just for you, but for everybody. So tell us how you got started as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll try to do my best to give you the short version, but I think for me, it's the journey of being a first generation Mexican American, right? And um, being the first of my family, being my parents and their siblings and their friends and pretty much their entire uh, family. I was the first one to come over here in the United States, be born here. So that I think that was an obstacle to begin with, right? But more importantly, just having the right guidance with them and exposure, I would say, right? Those were important facets, but also the faith and the example um, led me to, become the person that I am today. And so, getting to see my parents learn the economy and be first time home buyers in the United States and build our family from the ground up, literally. I think I was just always a curious kid where I paid attention to all the small details. And so uh, I got to pay attention to my father's the way he worked with people, right? The way he treated people and the way his mind worked. And then I saw my mom's work ethic as well and her commitment to her family and commitment to giving us values and morals. So I think the foundation, in a way, I would say I was a privileged kid because a lot of children, unfortunately, don't have a lot of those tools and resources that I did. So I think even though I was a first generation Mexican American, I was able to cultivate and really utilize a lot of those skill sets and values that were brought onto me. And so as an adult, I realized real quickly the value of time and how I could either be building somebody else's dreams or I could help in building my own dreams. And so, although that sounds amazing to a lot of people, right?
That was gold right there.
Yeah, a lot of people they've heard that saying before, and I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier said than done, right? Because when you say,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm not going to work for nobody," but here's the thing, everybody has different journeys, right? And not everybody's entrepreneurial journey is the same. And so for me, like I said, I was fortunate enough to have both of my parents. My father was an entrepreneur, businessman. My mom was an accountant, but a housewife by trade. And so I was able to pay attention to all those nuances that really have continued to help me out to this day. And so when I realized that I wanted to control a little bit of more of my time and pour into myself, that's pretty much when my mindset changed. And so um, at 22 years of age, I dropped out of school, of college, and I'm not proud of it. Right? Again, everybody has their own journey, but um, school at the time wasn't my journey, and so I had the opportunity to open up my first bar restaurant in San Antonio, Texas, and we had that for about 6 years, and um, I got to understand how business works, right, and how things are transactional, and so from there I started really to becoming a sponge, and so I think that's important, right? When you're growing up and you're passionate about something, or you want to be a millionaire, or you want to be an athlete, whatever you want to do, I think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded individuals and people that you can learn from. And so I started doing that at a really young age. Started hanging around with people like yourself too, and we'll get into that conversation of how you and I met. But when you start getting across people that have goals and have mindsets and have values, um, that starts, feeding off of your own beliefs. And so that helped out tremendously. And so we sold the restaurant, and then I got into the networking space, which is really cool. And I think that's how you and I met, right? And so the next thing that I learned real quickly, besides being a good salesperson, or being a good leader or whatnot, or part of being a good leader, is having the right mindset, right? And
Yeah.
so I always tell people this, and this is what I've learned. I think at the around the time that you and I met was, always start with the end in mind. And in whatever you're doing, that doesn't mean your entire life, right? You don't have to try to plan out your entire life, but as far as your goals, like if your goal is to own a certain business, then what does that business look like at the end of the race or at the top of the mountain? And if that makes you happy and fulfills your heart and your need, and more importantly, your why, right? The reason why you're doing things and
Yes.
who you're doing things for, then you can climb to that mountaintop and you can reach that goal, and then you start a new one. And so I think
And the
mindset
why in
is
mind.
important. Yeah, keep the why in mind, and so the mindset is such a powerful thing, right? Because it's like it's literally a roller coaster. Sometimes it just
Yes.
takes control of you, or you can take control of the ride and just kind of smile along the way, the ups and downs, and understand that it's going to be fun at the end when the ride is over.
Love that. So, okay. So you started a bar and you had that bar for 6 years. Then what did you move on to? What did you escalate to after the bar?
Yeah, you know I realized when I started the bar, obviously my goals were oriented around the bar, making it as successful as possible, and we did that. And at least in my opinion, we came out on Us Weekly as the top 100 nightclubs in the United States.
Wow.
Eva Longoria and Tony Parker got engaged in our venue, and
Wow.
we had all types of like politicians and just people show up, and so it was special because I was around so many different types of people, but I realized real quickly that that industry just wasn't for me, right? It just, again, going back to time and then thinking of the end in mind and understanding that it was kind of like pause and repeat. It was the same story. And for me, I wasn't passionate about that. So when we sold it, it did give me time to realize, to start paying attention to the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I'm good at. But along the way, life happens, right? And so that's the time that my wife and I, at the time we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, we had our first daughter, and Mariah, and I was 28 years old, and I needed to really come up with a good game plan that I felt could propel us and do the things that we are doing today, right? And so
Yeah.
when she was born, she gave her, along with my wife, were my reason why at that moment. And so you start thinking of money, right? The very first thing you start thinking is like, I need to start paying for bills. And so for most people, it's that, right? It's like, how could we even begin to live our dreams if we got to just pay what's in front of our
Yes.
face, right? Like these
Yes.
utility bills. And so just speaking to people around me, my mother, my brother, my sister, some of my good close friends, you know, that made up a big portion of the direction that I wanted to go to. And so I had to be more precise with my time management and what I was going to pour myself into. And so the next company that we started was a company called Nationwide Merchants. And it's a credit card processing company that
Awesome.
we still have till the day. And that helped me understand a lot of great things, right? That even today we're still using, which is the power of doing business online, and the power of the type of financial resource that you're actually using or the way you're making money. And for me, that was residual income.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
Definitely. Residual income is awesome.
yeah, no, absolutely. And so, once you understand the power of residual income and what it could do for you as far as free up your time and how you can grow that and multiply that, then you can start really tapping into your other passions, right? And so we went from Nationwide Merchants to having like our first couple clients to now we have a little bit over 500 uh different
Wow.
merchants or small businesses. And so um that was cool, and it's still cool, right? Because to me, I think when people ask me, well, you're an entrepreneur, but what do you do, right? And I tell people, well, I tell people I'm in the people helping people business,
Yes.
because my mindset it changed to, these people also have bills and families and dreams and aspirations. So I started changing my mindset to it being transactional, for me to having relationships with a lot of my clients. And even though they're professional relationships, I still took time out of the day to ask them how their family were, how they're doing, and their overall uh, mental health, their physical health, and just got to know a little bit more of the people that we were doing so many transactions with, right? And
Yeah.
so that helped me open up to another business that we still have today, and we opened up a company called Providers Elite Services.
And what do you do
And
with Providers Elite Services?
Providers Elite Services is a medical consulting ancillary company in which we provide medical programs that are going to improve patient care and patient outcome, and also potentially drive in additional revenue for these private practices. So
Wow.
the way I got into that space, again, was through networking, right? I think I keep using like certain
Networking
terminologies.
is
Yeah,
definitely a king here.
net, networking, relationships. And so from that, when we were doing the merchant service business, we got to meet a lot of people in a lot of industries, right?
Yeah.
And one of the industries was the medical industry, where we serviced a group of different doctors, and those doctors invited me to a house party for Christmas. And the question was asked, have you ever thought about getting into the medical industry? And with being having no experience in the medical industry, and only finishing 2 years of college, um you know i I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, I don't know much. I was honest. I said, I don't know much about it. But if you're asking me, I'm asking you, why are you asking me? And they were like, well, you're good at what you do, you're great at building relationships, and there's a ton of money that you can make, and there's a tons of lives that you can impact. And so those two things caught my attention real quickly. And so we learned the business from the ground up. We I became a student of it. I'm still a student of it. I'm still a sponge around people that know more than me or that are in different aspects or industries in the medical industry. And so, you know, my wife will tell you if you get to speak with her later, you know, I wasn't sleeping, and I was just excited about the opportunity to get into that space. And so I learned it, and you know, we've done well in the space. And so now that company has been around for 8 years now.
I have to say right here, okay, this is so wild. And it goes back to what you said well, earlier on in the conversation is like, it's one thing to say or wish that you want to be a millionaire or want to make a ton of money. But it's a whole different ballgame when you actually have to put in the action. And you just said right now you weren't sleeping. You know, your wife could definitely be like, yep, he was not sleeping. I can vouch. And so a lot of effort and work has to go into building these businesses. Now, let me ask you, when you started, because this is now 3 companies in, right? So you have the restaurant, you have the what is it, the transaction,
The
merchant service, and then now medical. I mean, all across the board, these are 3 wildly different industries, right? And so you had to learn these things. What would you tell an entrepreneur that's starting? Because the medical thing, I mean, that's something totally out of your realm in that moment, right?
Yeah.
What would you tell an entrepreneur that's like, God, I really have this great idea. I know it could take off. There's some great money involved in it. Where do you start? You know, like, how do you even begin to, what are the tools that you need to learn that and, you know, and to grow in it and to actually make it successful? Because I think that's like the key thing here is like, you can get something started and you see a lot of people start things, but then it just never takes off the way that it should, right? So what is how do you close the gap on getting it to take off?
Sure. Great question. You know, I think there's a lot to that question. And I'm trying to put all the answers together, but I think when you, for instance, when you see that like you want to open up a cake shop or even a restaurant, right? I think it's to do that. We are in a world where we can connect with people so easily, and I think it's a tool that's being underutilized tremendously. And
Yes, oh my gosh.
the type of resources that are readily available online. When I first started, and I know when you started, these tools weren't available. And so what I would say is that if you don't know anybody in your immediate circle, maybe ask somebody that knows somebody, right? There's something called the 6 degrees of separation. That's also powerful because within 6 people, you're pretty much connected to everybody in the world. You just don't know. You don't
Yes.
know it. But if you use that method and say you want to go into the bar business, I know plenty of successful people that own bars and they do it the right way, that I would reach out and take them out to lunch, to dinner, you know, buy them that lunch and dinner, and really, like, you know,
Pick their
dig into,
brain.
yeah, pick their brains and ask them the everything, the pros and the cons, and why they're doing it and what their game plan is and all that, and see if that matches what your long-term vision is, you know. And so
Yeah.
I would say that's number one, because I think as entrepreneurs, so many times we have the right skill sets as far as like our energy, as far as the way we're open to talking to people, but we get into the wrong industries that just don't fit who we are as people, as our character. And so a lot of times it looks great. Like, speaking from experience, the bar industry looks great. And I'm not saying I didn't have fun or I wasn't successful, but I think I would do things differently if I knew what I knew now, right?
Yes.
Um, and so educating yourself around that industry, around that product or service or business that you want to do, I think is important. But I'll tell you a little nugget of advice that was given to me just last week from of a very influential, powerful, successful businessman that had came to visit me from Florida, and he owns a very successful biologic company that's also in the medical space. And he's a bit older than me, and I was kind of asking him some of these questions you're asking me now, right? And because I like to pick people's brains. And so two things that he told me that have stuck with me today. And I asked him, I said, well, how did you know to get into that space of biologics, and 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 what has it done for you? And this was his answer. He goes, well, I look at two things when I go into a business. I look at the the longevity of it. Is it something that is sustainable in any economy? And I thought that was so powerful because during COVID, a lot of restaurants and bars were closed down.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, I was just in that industry a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
right? But during that time period, my company did the best that it has ever done. And so I correlated that answer to my experience, which I thought was very powerful. And he said, so I look at that. I look at the longevity. Is it a long game? And he goes, let me tell you why. Because he goes, you could always make more money, but you can't buy more time. And so if you're going to be investing your whole who you are and all of your energy, your money, and everything, sacrificing sleep, sacrificing time from your friends, your wife, your husband, etc., then you better be at least positive that this thing can last. So
Yes.
that was the first thing that he gave me. And then the second thing he gave me, which I thought was even more powerful than the first answer, was is it something that can operate without you?
Oh my God. That's the most valuable thing like anybody can tell an entrepreneur, because that is something that I wholeheartedly believe in. I'm like, I've worked with so many different startups and companies, and the one thing that I've always asked these CEOs is like, can this run without you? Like, if you were plucked out of this, would it be successful? Would it generate money? Or does it need you as a component? Because if it does, how scalable can that be? How, not only how scalable can it be, you can't even like sell it if you wanted to, because you'd have to be a part of it.
For sure.
So
For sure.
powerful.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's why I love what you're doing. Cause I think having that mindset and understanding of how you can leverage what you built, and how hopefully if you run it correctly and have the right foundation, that if you were to get in a car accident, God willing you don't, but if anybody were to get in an accident where you were to lose your life and not be here tomorrow, would everything that you poured into it, would it be able to run and continue to
Or be
help out
gone.
your family and reap the benefits of what you built? So I thought those things were powerful. And so I think those two things I would say to all the entrepreneurs is, whether you're 16 years old or 66 years old, um still think with the end in mind, and think, is this something that I can leverage and it could still run successfully with or without me? So I thought that was pretty powerful.
That is so powerful. I love that.
For sure.
And I just really, it makes me think also too, how now working through and building these three companies, did you ever use social media to be a driving marketing piece for any of these companies?
Sure. um not in the sense that most people think, like in the sense of like, let's do like an advertising boost on Instagram or Facebook. No, because my type of line of work is a little bit more personable, and you need to be kind of face to face and build that trust, right? And be able to answer a lot of questions on the go. And so I never took that approach with this company that I'm in now, Providers Elite Services, just because I knew it was a different realm. I knew that my client was the doctors, right? The providers. And so the way they communicate is a little bit different than most people communicate on social media, but what I did utilize was on social media was being able to reach out and kind of give them a little bit of information via their inbox, right? And to kind of
Okay.
pique their interest. Or I would get a referral from, for example, someone like yourself, and I would say, hey, Jacqueline referred me. I know she knows you. She's talked highly about you. And then I would hit them with a PM, like a private message. And so from those aspects, I've certainly utilized it since the beginning, from when Facebook was the only
In
social
its
media that we had.
infancy.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
no,
gosh,
it's very
that
powerful.
that is that I love what you said right there, because that brings it back to what you've been saying this whole time. The theme is networking, really building those relationships and having those connections and being able to build that rapport with people that they trust you and believe in you. And when you're bringing new opportunities or introducing new people, they want to
Right.
be involved, and that's so powerful. So I feel like that's more powerful when you do it in a DM versus just blasting everything out there on social media, right? Because it's like that's very impersonal. You're just letting people know what's going on. But when you have like a personal private message with somebody, it's like, hey, I see this in you and I would love to work with you. It's that personal invitation. So love that.
Sure. And let me just add one thing to it that I think a lot of people are gonna appreciate. So like, um, I think social media, just like anything else, it gets oversaturated pretty quickly.
Yes.
And so you have to do things that other people are not willing to do for you to have the success that you want to have. And so what does that mean? That means that, like, it's simple to just to like PM somebody and be like, hey, can you do this for me? But I think, and I call this the slow drip, right? So I think when you have people in that you want to approach, or that you respect, or that you want to work with, or want to learn from, right? But they're not in your direct line of communication. Then what you do is you slow drip on them. When they post a comment, or they post something on their social media, comment on it, right? I think as entrepreneurs, we make the mistake to just automatically go for the
Pounce.
kill. Like, yeah, like we go and we see the pretty girl in the club. She walks in, and we're after her, and we're attacking her like sharks,
Yeah.
and that doesn't work. And so, but if you slow drip,
People
if you
like to
do it
be finessed, Miguel.
exactly. So what slow drip means is just cultivate the relationship, even if it's from the exterior. Eventually, it will become the interior. And so in social media, we're just so quick to like message someone, comment on this, and really not get to know who they are, and for them to get to know who we are. And I think when you put in the time and energy with the right people, then you're gonna see a lot of outcome for sure.
Okay, I love what you said. Bringing it all to where we're at now. You talked about surrounding yourself with the right people, learning your industry, making sure it's a good fit for you. Really that key advice that you just offered up right now is just making sure that industry can be around and survive the test of time, and also positioning yourself where if you are extracted from that situation or that business, that it can still operate without you. Oh my gosh, words of wisdom right there. Seriously.
Thank you.
Networking is king. You got to get in the right circles. And how do you maneuver yourself into those right circles, Miguel?
Yeah, I think you in order for you to become the person that you want to become, you have to learn that failure is part of the process. That's like, you have to just understand that it just comes with it. And so what does that mean? I think you can recall certain instances where I probably thought of myself more highly than I was, as far as the knowledge that I had maybe at the time when network marketing. You have to believe in yourself that you're going to get there, and that you're going to become that person, even though you're not that person at that moment. And you have to understand that you will always constantly becoming something different, right? Growing into your purpose, I call it, right?
Mhm.
So with that being said, you have to take risk. And so risk involves, putting gas in your car when you don't have that much, it's between gas and a meal, right? But maybe that if you put gas in your car and you go to the right people, they might have some hors d'oeuvres that they might be offering at the network event. And so you sneak off to the side and eat, and then you go and you utilize the rest of your time to network. And I think that's the most important thing, is like, if you really want to go do it, and you want to chase your dreams and chase your goals, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yes, I love that. Do you think that a lot of people, well, a lot of, startup companies, no matter what business it is it's a difference between putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and growing and stretching to become what you want to be, and just really being in that uncomfortable position, like networking. Maybe you're not a social person, but that could be the difference of your business flourishing because you're meeting, better contacts.
Yeah. That's a great question. For me, my personality trait is like, I think I was talking when I was in the womb,
Me
I
too.
think that's a characteristic type of trait. I think that's a great question for someone like my wife. I'll kind of answer it for her, but I think that'd be good to ask her if you get to interview her. But she's an introvert, and she a very smart, genuine, down to earth introvert. In other words, when she can get to talking, she will move your heart and your emotions better than most people can. And what I've seen from her as of late, from when we started this nonprofit, her being the founder of the nonprofit, is I saw her become uncomfortable with having to speak to people, right? And so that's not something that she's ever done her whole life. It's not something that she grew up with parents, seeing her parents do that. No. And so it's been special watching her go from uh, potential relationship to relationship in the nonprofit space, and her just being herself. I think when you can become yourself and just kind of break out of that shell, it's powerful, the type of results that you could bring about. So again, I understand that more people are fearful than others. That's okay, as long as you go and do it, right? When you go do it, every single time you're going to get better and better and better. And so that would be my recommendation, is just give it a shot until you become good at it. And even though those butterflies will never go away, actually people will be like, man, you're actually really good at it. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, such great things that were talked about here. And I have to ask about your kids now. So I know you have 3 kids, and it's kind of like, I feel like there's this generational trend, right? So your parents were entrepreneurs, you're an entrepreneur. Your kids literally have never experienced like 9 to 5hood in their lives, right? Like their parents are not, their grandparents are not. What do you think your kids are going to be? Are they going to be entrepreneurs?
Wow, that's an amazing question. It I don't know what I would want from them as a parent, right? This is my parent hat talking. It's just for them to be good people, and for them to find self-fulfillment and to be able to serve, right? I think those 3 things are important to me, more than them making a ton of money, or following in my footsteps. I think what I plan to teach them, and hopefully my wife and I are teaching them at the moment, is that um, all your decisions matter, right? And they all have consequences. Your choices and your decisions have consequences. And so every decision and choice that you make is telling yourself of how you want to live in your life. And so being an entrepreneur, I think they've seen that it gives you the ability to really try to become the best version of yourself. It gives you the opportunity to pour into others. It gives you the opportunity financially to serve in a grander stage, and to serve your family and your friends, right? And then of course the time freedom, right? Being
Yeah,
able to, the times that we get to spend with them is invaluable. I think for them, they don't realize it just yet, because one of them is 14 and then the other one is 9, and then we have a 5-year-old. So I don't think they understand these important details just yet. But I think our example is more important than the words that we can tell them. So hopefully our example
powerful.
yeah, hopefully our example is going to inspire them, just like my parents' example inspired myself. You know, both my brother and my sister are very successful in their own rights, and they're very creative and intelligent people as well. And you know, they're not entrepreneurs, but they still do a lot of shaking and moving, and they do really well for their families. And so I think it's more centered towards just finding your happiness is
Awesome.
to me what I want to teach to them for sure. Yeah.
I love that. Now, in your time of, starting from where you started to now, did you ever feel a sense of like that things weren't going to take off? Did you ever doubt yourself or, maybe feel like this this isn't going to move? I don't know what I'm doing here. Or did you ever feel like giving up?
Yeah. Um, you know, for me personally, I think a lot of people they go through those spells for sure. Speaking to a lot of other entrepreneurs and friends that own businesses, they definitely. For me, it was different because circling back to being first generation Mexican American, both of my parents being born in Mexico, I felt like they had done too much for me to be selfish enough to even have that thought in my mind to give up. And
Yeah,
so I always looked at it like I'm going to succeed no matter what. And so
I love that.
it's not saying that I didn't have moments of despair or that I didn't cry or that I felt like a failure. No, I mean all those emotions for sure creeped into my mind. But ultimately I always knew that again, starting with the end in mind, I said, you know, if I'm gonna, my wife will tell you the story. You know, when we first met, I had told her when I moved from El Paso to San Antonio to start the bar, I had was very clear with her. I told her, you know, you're such a beautiful person and you're an amazing, talented woman. Like, are you sure you want to be with someone like me that is just gonna be out being an entrepreneur and never working for anybody? Are you sure you want that type of roller coaster ride? Because I think there's a million men that would want to marry you now.
Yeah.
And her answer was no. Like I'm okay with being with you and chasing those goals and dreams together. And so from that moment it was like, you know, you have to plant your flag and understand that there's going to be those storms that are going to come into your life, and you can either decide to run away from the storm and complain about the storm, or you can run into the storm and embrace it, because what's going to happen is the fear is going to go away, and then the storm will pass, it'll go somewhere else, and then the sun will come out, and then that's where you experience the growth. And so yeah.
That is so awesome. I love this.
Yeah.
And I love what you said right there. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, just in like my conversations with different people that, have started startups and gone public and, just have all these different things going on in their life. The one thing that I hear that is the common theme though is like they were set from the very beginning that this is what I want to do. This is where my future is going. And any partner, like you have to know that up front because that's where I'm going. And I don't know if you're going to be wanting to be a part of this bumpy ride because it's going to buckle up, baby, because it's going to get rough.
Yeah, it does get rough. And it does get rough. And you know, there's so many topics to go along that journey, because I think mental health is certainly a topic that is not discussed enough under amongst entrepreneurs and business owners. I think there's so much weight in our shoulders, and I think the weight even gets bigger once you actually become successful, and
Yeah.
the type of responsibility that you hold. And so I think mental health is important, is an important topic for us to talk about maybe some other time. But
Yes, definitely.
I
That's why
I,
you
I
have a
bring
gym in your house.
yeah, and I bring it up because along the journey you do lose yourself, and you go crazy thinking about um the shoulda, coulda, woulda's, right? And so, but you have to get up and say, okay, I gotta improve. I gotta make sure it's there's a saying, right? Um, don't change the goal, change the plan, right? And
Yeah.
so if you see that your plan isn't working, and again, going back to like picking the industry and looking at it from a marathon point of view, then you got to change up the plan, right? So you can get to the goal still. And so, yeah, you got to go all guns blazing and just believe until you make it. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I know my honey can attest to that. He's like, he's an engineer, so everything's like logical. And I'm like, he's like, after all these years now, he's like, okay, I'm good. Whatever you're doing, we're good.
For
But yeah,
sure.
in the beginning it was bumpy for him.
It is. It is. But it's beautiful to do it with somebody because you do get that support, right?
Yes,
So special.
definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about right now. What's going on right now? I think we want to go grab Wendy for this.
Yeah, I do. Do we need to press pause or should I is there a pause button or no?
Yeah, there's the pause button. Hold on really quick.
Pause then no.
All right, so Miguel was able to go and find Wendy, and we're going to talk about what they're doing right now, which is their nonprofit, and this is so exciting. So we talked about Miguel's success in 3 different businesses, 3 different industries, and how he's mastered it. And now he's taking on with his wife and their partnership. Talk about a power couple. That's them right there. Talk about hashtag goals right here. You're looking at it. So Wendy, tell us about your nonprofit.
Yes, hi. Well, our nonprofit is called Planty Seed, and it means a lot of things to me. But planting seed is what it implies. It's literally, planting seeds into our community. El Paso is full of talent, hardworking people, a lot of entrepreneurs, and a lot of young, talented, athletes and artists that we want to help empower them. We want to help them. With mentorship, with guidance, with leadership. We just, not just that, but if anyone's going through a difficult time, we want to rally out that support from the community and just build them up and let them know that they're not by themselves. Just last weekend, we did a bone marrow registry drive, and we did that for a close friend of mine. Her name is Karina Hernandez. She's had cancer for 5 years, and she's requiring a bone marrow transplant. So we did that drive for her, rallied up the community and helped, do a drive. And so that's what it's about. This weekend, we're doing a meet and greet with USA team boxer Kayla Gomez. She's a native El Pasoan. And, she's only 19 years old. And, she's going to go to the Olympics next year.
Oh my gosh, how old is she?
She's 19.
Wow, and she's going to the Olympics next year, and you guys are
Yes.
out there supporting her.
Yes, no, we want to make sure that the community is aware that we have her, representing El Paso. So we want to, build that awareness, that support, help her also, with sponsorships, donations, because she's only 19. Her family's been supporting her, just her mom and her grandmother. So we want to be able to help her out.
That's awesome. I love this. So just doing your community outreach and bringing your community together to support, definitely things that are needed, supporting this young gal, 19 years old, going to the Olympics, and just making sure people know and are aware that you guys have a superstar in El Paso.
Exactly. Yes.
That is awesome.
And if I could add, so the goal for the nonprofit is to serve all of the Latin and Hispanic communities across the United States eventually.
Wow.
My wife and I being both from El Paso, Texas, and being first time Mexican American children of immigrants, right, is pretty powerful to be able to give back into our community. And so one of the reasons that my wife had thought about building this nonprofit was, and she could speak a little bit more about it, was because of her experience with working with CPS.
Yes, I was a caseworker. for the Department of Texas. And, you know, I worked a lot with a lot of families that, you know, just under-resourced, underprivileged in the education system and just financially. You know, we were involved, but they didn't necessarily, you know, need us to be involved. They just lacked a lot of resources, mentorship and guidance. And, you know, I miss doing all of that work, but you know, there's a lot of limitations with, you know, with the government on in what we can, yeah, what can be provided. So, you know, I've had this in my heart for a while. I mean, I love helping. Miguel, he teases me. He's like, wow, I can't wait to see what you look like when you start getting paid, when you start making money, because you're motivated. And I'm like, I don't know, you know, I thank God for the opportunity that you know, I feel it's my purpose. And I thank God that, you know, I'm in this position because I really love serving.
I think that's the best person to be in a nonprofit, is somebody that has that passion, and you have had all those years of serving in that capacity of being a mentor and protecting, you know, within the CPS system. And I think, you know, you coming into this nonprofit is just like totally not a surprise. You know, this is who you are meant to be and serve in a bigger capacity. And I have no doubt in my mind that you guys are going to take this thing nationwide.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So one of the things that I wanted to tell you right now on our earlier conversation when we weren't being recorded was we are planning to move to San Antonio, Texas. Probably within the next 1.5 to 2 years. That's what we're praying on at the moment, and we're seeing if, you know, the right opportunities and doors open up for us, which it appears to be. And so by doing that, it doesn't mean that we're going to let off the gas here in El Paso, because again, it's a city that's given so much to us and that has gotten us to the point where we're at now. So we're going to continue to come back and build into the city, but at the same time open up some new opportunities and bless some people in San Antonio as well.
Definitely, I can see the need here too. I don't know what the pulse is in El Paso, but just being here in San Antonio since June and just really having my ear to the ground and eyes open, you really see that need for this nonprofit and being able to help so many people in so many different ways. So they are going to be so lucky to have you guys out here.
Yeah, and you know, it's so crazy. I mean, talk about full circle. I actually started my CPS work in San Antonio. And so to be able to go back and, you know, serve in that community as well it'd be awesome.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And I can't wait. Okay, we're going to have to quantum leap that 2 years and turn it into like 6 months.
Right?
Absolutely. And we do have two upcoming events past the one that my wife just mentioned, the one with Kayla Gomez. We have an entrepreneur event that we're going to be doing on April 29th. I'm sorry, April 28th. Hopefully that's something that you can attend yourself.
Yes.
We'll give you all the details about that. It'd be good to have you in the panel to speak. And
yes.
then if you can't go to that one, we have another one for you.
I'm coming in April.
which is we're going to do a women empowerment event as well.
Okay.
After the entrepreneur event. And so all the details are in the making, but they're going to be amazing, impactful events for sure.
Definitely. I can see everything that you guys put your hands to. It's like the Midas touch. Everything you touch turns to gold.
Well, we're just following God's, you know, path, honestly. I mean, we pray on it, and if it's for us, we'll do it. You know, if it's in His will.
I love this. Okay, so I just want our audience to hear from this right now. You heard this from an entrepreneurial Wendy, Miguel. They just said it right now. If it's in the path and it's if God's will, we're going to do it. You know, that's the entrepreneurial mindset for sure. It's like, we are not restricted by restricted thinking. You know, it's like, whoa, we can make something great out of this.
Yes.
For sure. I think if God's put that vision in your heart and in your mind, it's not for you just to talk about it, but it's for you to be about it, you know? And so have the courage to step into your greatness and follow your dreams and take on all the fears and the challenges and setbacks. It's part of it, right? So
Yes.
we're excited to be doing this together. We're extremely blessed for sure.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
so thankful for you guys jumping on this podcast. I know this podcast, this episode itself is going to really impact so many people, and even entrepreneurs that are having those thoughts of maybe giving up, or what to do next, or how to move. This episode alone, I feel like had so much going on in it. There's a lot of great information in it, elements of 3 businesses, nonprofits, supportive, powerful couple right here. So a lot of things went into this. So I just want to thank everybody for listening here today. Any last words, Miguel?
I'm sorry?
Any last words?
No, I would just say, I'm grateful for your consideration to having us on your podcast. I think we're the first ones of many. And
One where I can prepare.
and I'd like to give it back to you as well, for the things that you've accomplished and continue to accomplish. You were one of my mentors in my journey as well. I didn't mention that earlier in some of the questions that you had asked of me, but I think people like yourself have definitely helped guide and align my mindset to what I'm doing now. I think what Wendy and I are a cultivation and an example of when the right people pour into you, and being surrounded with like-minded people with energy and positivity and high values. There's a lot of beautiful things that can stem from that, so continue to plant those seeds yourself into others. And thank you for your time as always.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, here we go. Everybody say bye.
Bye.